Hey everybody, it's your girl Nick, and welcome to another edition of the Bo Knows Business. This is such an exciting series. You are really getting to know our Bo Collective members. We have 52 amazing Black women who own million-dollar businesses, and the purpose of this podcast is to really give you insight into their story, their becoming story. How do you become an entrepreneur? How do you do it successfully? They're going to share their strategies, telling you the good and the bad and the ugly of their business, and give you some tips on how to do that successfully for yourself. So this week, I have the pleasure to introduce you to Donna Shuler. She is the co-president of Answer Title, and I can't wait for you all to meet her. Hey there, Miss Donna.
Hey there, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing great. Listen, I'm so excited to really have this time for you and I to chat, for me to get to know you better, for you to, you are a superhero to all entrepreneurs, and we just want to know how the superhero got her cape. If you're okay with that, I would love for us to just have a conversation about how you became a successful entrepreneur. What do you say?
It sounds good. I look forward to it.
Awesome. So let's go back. I love how Michelle Obama, and this is what we've done with all of our Bo sisters, the becoming story, right? Because so many times we look up to our idols and we think that maybe there's something that made them, they were born extraordinary, but we know through our becoming stories that, hey, there were things along the way that helped nurture the person that you are today, right?
Yeah.
All righty. So tell us about your childhood. Where did you grow up? Were you, one of 8 children? Were you, an only child? Just tell us a little bit about, little Donna, I say.
That's funny. You should call me Little Donna because that's what they call me.
Oh, that's great.
Little Donna. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm a 4th generation Washingtonian, which is rare to find in the city now. It's because Washington's so transit. So I am one of 6 children. I'm the 3rd child. And, the middle child is the little independent one. And my mother was one of 14. She was a baby girl of 14. And so I have a very large family. So the 6 kids around the dining room table to the cousins of the 14 aunts and uncles. So I really had a village raising me, and it was a wonderful experience and still is. All 14 are gone. My parents are gone, but I still have loving siblings that are surround me, cousins.
I love it. So, being that, as you mentioned, the 4th generation Washingtonian, there's great pride. I'm from California. I came here for law school in 93. So technically I've been here longer than I was at home, but I know a lot of my friends, my husband, are 3rd and 4th generation. Tell me what that means to you. How did that impact the person that you are? What type of pride and things did you learn being from DC?
You use the right word, pride. Watching this city, which is the nation's capital, and hearing stories from my parents and grandparents about when and how they could come and go as a minority in the city, it shaped me, and it shaped some of my business fundamentals that I got from my father and how he started a bank, because there were no Black banks. There were no places where African Americans could go to get loans, to buy homes. So I actually saw downtown change from white to Black over generations. And it's a good feeling. It's pride. There's 7 generations now in my family in Washington, and we keep telling these stories to them over and over again about what the city was like, what their grandparents and aunts and uncles endured to get where we are today.
I love that. I mean, and so many of us, I think I fall in that category where, you may know your grandparents' story. You're lucky if you know your great grandparents, but there feels like that disconnection, right? Like you can't go so far back. And I would think that the fact that you can and that oral history is being
Yes.
just passed down, that has to give you a sense of confidence, a sense of self.
It does. It does give me a good sense of self. I can go back to when my great great grandfather was on a ship, and we have logs, ship logs, and he's in the Naval Museum. His name's there. So, yes, I can go that far
Oh,
back.
well, I love it. So I will have to say now, I did say, hey, people weren't born great. You kind of might have been born great, Miss Donna. I mean, this is pretty. This is a atypical story. There are not a lot of people that can say their father, especially in the African American community, owned a bank. Can you tell me more about that story? You alluded to it, but can you go a little deeper? Because I'm assuming that had a direct impact on your career path.
It did. It did. So, the typical African American story. My father did not go to college. Um, Graduated from high school, had to be very entrepreneurial because he got married and, had kids right away with my mother, and had many careers. He ended up selling real estate, had his own real estate brokerage company, but he couldn't find loans for his borrowers. So he went to his friends who were doctor, lawyers, Indian chiefs, and said, back then the houses were $20,000, $30,000. Would you like to be a private lender for Miss Smith or Mr. Smith? Because women couldn't buy homes by themselves at that time. And so he had private money to make African Americans wealth back then. And it became so much, he ran out of people. And he said, you know what, this is 1968. I'm going to start my own African American bank. And it was an Independence Federal Savings and Loan located in Washington, D.C. It grew to be the second largest minority bank in the nation. And it also became one of the first or second African American bank to be on the NASDAQ stock exchange because it went public in the early 80s. So that was a big to do. And we learned banking early in our growing up in our household and starting the bank. We literally, the children and my siblings and I, sat on the floor with him stuffing envelopes, which were letters going out to the community saying, would you like to invest in the bank? And people did. They brought their $5, $10, $15 to actually open the bank. And Herbert Hoover was right there cutting the ribbon and was at 6 and E Northwest Washington, across the street from then the department store, Woody's, Woodworth and Loafers, if those people who remember the store back then.
Gosh, I am fangirling. I'm really trying to, maintain my decorum as the host here. But girl, I am fangirling. I am so, so proud. I mean, I'm going to make this a requirement. All of these interviews that not only our Bo sisters watch, but we give them to our children. My son, I'll take him to basketball practice and he will watch an episode. And you know how kids really are like, oh, I'm not listening. He like turns up the volume on my phone, as we're going. So thank you so much for sharing not only your history, your family history, but the city's history, the country's history. That is so incredible. I did get the pleasure of talking to your co-founder and your partner, but I'd love to hear the story of you all meeting from you. Tell us how you and Catherine formed the collective, and what was it? I see from your family, very entrepreneurial. You were well steeped in the industry. But what made you, number one, want to do it on your go out on your own? But number two, what about Catherine made you confident that you would move in this direction?
Wow, Catherine and I have a very unique background where our fathers compared background works. So I met Catherine, I guess in 2002, 2003. I was the president of CEO of the bank when my father passed. I took the reign. I'd been working there for 25 years. And I was the first African American female bank president in the District of Columbia. So there were a lot of firsts for Washington. And Catherine was the banking commissioner, and that's where we first met. And she came to discuss with me changing my charter from a federal charter to a local charter, bank charter. And so as we talked about our backgrounds, she told me she had lost her father, and I had just lost my father. So it was about 18 months of losing our parents, and we were crying. After discussing banking, we just started crying, and I just saw her warm spirit, and I said, this is a great person. Fast forward, we ended up in Leadership Washington class together, 2000, wonderful, and became friends there too. It just solidified our relationship. Things happened, as I told you, it was a publicly traded company, the bank, and we had a coup, and someone took over the financial institution. And Catherine was she left the banking commissioner's job. And so we were kind of free. And we met for lunch one day after taking our kids to school, and had a conversation about what's life after banking. And I said, I'm going to be chilled for a little while. I'm good. I've got my real estate license. I'm just, going to coast for a minute. I've been working, in our generation, you work from the time you're 15. So I just wanted a break. And Catherine says, no, we need to do something. And I said, okay. And we went back and forth about what talents we had. And we came up with, why not a title company? She's got real estate background with her law degree, and my banking and knowing the ins and outs of what banks need. We knew there was a niche that wasn't in Washington, which was a woman-owned title company, and one that does commercial transactions. And we knew all the developers. We knew all the other bankers. So it was just a natural fit. Let's do this. That's how we ended up working together. I lost you. I can't hear you.
I was saying, if you guys, I said your answers and her answers match perfectly. Like if you were on the Newlywed Game, like y'all would win a prize. Like you. No, that's perfect. So I want to, I think the next thing, we're really creating a legion of followers of Black women entrepreneurs with the Bow Collective. I want you to talk directly to them. Catherine gave us some of her critical things that she believed helped you all scale. And I want you to talk directly to those women coming behind you. They may not have a title company, but they are successful, but really want to scale up. Give me 2 or 3 things that you that impacted you in retrospect, that you believe you made this decision at this moment to help your business grow.
We learned very early on we had to diversify the type of business we had. Yes, there's title business, and yes, we handled residential, commercial. We were doing very well. The economy tanked in 2008, and we had to, leap into, oh gosh, what are we going to do? We've got this amazing staff, very seasoned people in our sphere. What are we going to do? And we decided to look for government contracts. And then that worked for us. We got our 8A, and we work with local and federal contracts still today. The other thing that we did was start an abstracting company, a separate company, Answer Abstracts, because we were outsourcing our abstracting portion of our company and brought it in-house, so we didn't have to share the revenue. You just have to be creative. We changed some of our NAS codes for our federal contracting. We added janitorial because someone asked us to team with them because we were an 8A woman-owned hub zone in a bid. We also went into construction management, which again changed our NAS codes, but it's all real estate centered. We did the financial end of it and subbed out the hammer nail part of the transactions, and we've made built some great things.
No, I love that. This is so good, not only for, people starting. Um, Everything you said about scaling is something we inherently know. Well, strike that. I don't inherently know. We know from learning that partnerships, strategic partnerships, is a way to scale. That you're not, if you're specialized and you stay that way, you can't fan out, right? So
Right.
you that might be a way to start a business, starting in a niche of expertise, but after you've kind of plateaued there, looking for that diversification, and those strategic partnerships that you have really met along your journey, right? Navigating those, transitioning those, and making it a win-win. That might be your brokerage background. I see my husband do that a lot. That win-win triangulation is such a key, I think, component of successfully scaled businesses. Would you agree?
I agree. I agree. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I want to leave you with one thing that's beyond business. I didn't get a chance to ask Catherine, but I'm going to bring her back in a few minutes. You don't know that. That's
Okay.
a little surprise. So I'm going to bring you both up, and we'll talk about the Bow Collective. But for you, Donna, what is beyond business? What after you have accomplished so many firsts, have been rooted in success, not only professionally but personally. What are things that are beyond business for you that have a higher calling, a higher purpose in your life?
Of course, God first, God, family. And then for fun, I love golf and I love to travel. And I know that sounds silly, but I make it a point to go to someplace spectacular at least every 2 years. And I've had the pleasure of, climbing Machu Picchu, and I look forward to going someplace special in the next year or so after COVID has settled down.
Oh, well, I love that. I thank you so, so much for sharing your personal becoming story, your rich history within the nation's capital, and just sharing yourself and your story with us today. I know you have blessed so many people, so I'm so grateful to you for being here.
Well, thank you. And thank you for allowing me to be part of the Bow Collective. It's a pleasure. I get energized when I'm around my fellow colleagues in this group, and you're doing a fabulous job, Nick. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sister. Take care.